Hi, I'm Joe, and yeah, I'm actually feeling that my usual intro is getting pretty repetitive. I think I need to start changing that up a little sometime soon. Anyway, I mentioned in my last video that I was going to talk about the films that I've seen so far this year, and I'm going to make it as brief as possible. I don't want this video to run too long. And the first couple of movies that I'm going to talk about are ones that I've done brief written reviews for, which I shared on SodaHead in a private group postings. Those of you who have read those, just bear with me for a couple of minutes, and I'll get to some stuff that I have not talked about, at least not on the internet yet. Um, Although, first of all, there are some movies that I've really wanted to see that I haven't seen yet, and I'm just going to wait for them to come out in stores because I'm pretty confident that they're going to be worth it. First of all, there's the third Insidious movie. I've heard some really good things about it, and I love the first two. I've got both of them on Blu ray, and the thing is, uh, generally with horror movies, I think they're better to experience in the privacy of my own room in the dark. Uh, you know, Usually when I go see one in the theaters, especially if it's rated PG-13, there'll just be some stupid teenagers or maybe even some college age kids who will be talking through it or laughing their asses off. And that's great if you're having a good time with some horror movie that you think is stupid and you're able to get a good laugh out of it. But um, I like being scared. I do like watching a good B movie every once in a while, but the Insidious movies are the type that really get me, and I want to have that experience with the third movie as well. And then also, I have not yet gotten the chance to see Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is pretty terrible. Um, the There was a weekend that I was planning to go see it. I had one day off that week, and on the day that I was gonna go see it, I went to get my phone fixed, and I spent the whole day running around town just to find out that it was beyond repair. So, yeah, I talked about that enough in my last video, so moving on. Anyway, uh, I heard a lot of people say that Avengers Age of Ultron felt sort of incomplete, and I've heard that supposedly when it comes out in stores there's going to be a director's cut, so I'm going to just go ahead and get that when it comes out. I'm sure it'll be worth it. Anyway, just wait till it comes out and I fucking hate it. I don't think that's going to happen. Moving on, first movie that I saw at the theater this year was Project Almanac, and I had a pretty good time while I was watching it. The characters were really fun, and I thought they brought up some really interesting and even chilling concepts when it came to time travel. But once the movie was over, the more I thought about it, the less I liked it upon retrospect. For one thing, with it being a found footage movie, the footage needs to be a little flawed. The sound can't be perfect. I mean, there's a scene in that movie where you're able to hear someone perfectly from the other side of the room where the camera's at. Um, and there were a lot of severe plot holes when it came to the time travel that just didn't make a lot of sense. And plus, I didn't think that they utilized it in a very believable manner. There were just a lot of things wrong with the movie, but still, uh, while I would consider Project Almanac to be the worst movie of 2015 that I have seen so far, a film that I enjoyed while watching it being the worst, I think makes this a pretty good run. Uh, the next movie that I went and saw was It Follows, and I know what I was just saying about, scary movies, but for one thing, I didn't even think of the whole privacy thing until recently. And for another thing, the audience who was there seeing the movie with me were pretty respectful. For one thing, independent horror movie audiences are probably generally able to take movies more seriously. And for another thing, it was an R rated movie, so it was a little less likely to draw teenagers as an Insidious movie. Anyway, it was. I thought it was an excellent movie. I loved the sort of 70s vibe that it had, while they meshed in some, modern day special effects, which still looked pretty believable. The horror scenes in it were really visceral and intense. And although I thought it ran a little too slow in parts, I did like how they were able to sort of build character in the film. And something that never happens to me is, I pretty much never have nightmares about the scary movies that I see, especially on the nights after I've seen them. Uh, some Every once in a while I might have some weird bad dream about a movie a few weeks after seeing it, but after I got home from the theater and after I went to bed, I had a nightmare about It Follows. And then, something that happens even less frequently than never for me, having multiple nightmares about a movie. And I haven't had a whole lot, but I did have a second one a couple of weeks after seeing It Follows. So, yeah, I it really got me. It was a really creepy movie, and it's one that could be on my list of best movies of the year. Um, Up next, I went and saw American Sniper at the Dollar Movies the weekend before it came out on Blu ray. And it wasn't a bad movie at all. The performances were all top notch. The war scenes were really intense. And I thought it was a pretty excellent portrayal of a man who almost sacrificed his mental stability for the sake of our country. Uh, my only personal issue with it was that I thought the drama got a little long winded in parts. There were a lot of times where the movie ran so slowly that my mind just started wandering off, and you know I don't necessarily think that's worth seeing again. And I'm glad that I went and saw it at the Dollar Movies before it came out, because I would have been stupid enough to go and buy it. Uh, just like I'm gonna be stupid enough to get the third Insidious and Avengers movies. Let's see how much I like them. Up next, I went and saw Mad Max Fury Road. A while back, I did a sort of double review for both Mad Max and The Road Warrior, and I described how excited I was to see that movie. I mean, the trailer shows you action, 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 and more action. And when I saw the movie, what I ended up getting was action, 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 and more action. It was a really fun movie, just as I hoped it would be. And the action scenes were just phenomenal. I loved how much of it was done practically. There was very little CGI utilized in the film. Um, as far as the performances go, a lot of people didn't like Tom Hardy. They say that he's no Mel Gibson, which I think is fair, but as far as the performance goes, some people had an issue with the way that he spoke in the movie. He was almost mumbling, but honestly, if someone is just sort of roaming the desert by themselves, they're not going to be much of a talker. And of course, Charlize Theron, as I know everyone else has brought this up as well, but she pretty much steals the show. She was just completely badass in the movie. And there's a rumor going around that she's going to be playing Captain Marvel, which sounds fucking perfect. Sign her up for that. Um, And I love Nicholas Holt's character in the movie too. I loved how he just started as this, you know, sort of mad villain, and then uh, kind of started developing more depth to his character as the film went on. So yeah, so far, this is definitely my favorite movie of this year, which kind of sets the bar low for the next few movies, but not really. Just about most people who have gone and seen it have loved it. I know one of my friends on here hasn't. I've seen your review, Adam, and to each his own. Up next, I went and saw Tomorrowland, and I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm glad that I went and saw it. It was another movie where the performances were all excellent. I loved George Clooney's character in the movie. He was different than he usually is. Instead of being the old charming George Clooney, he was this very angry and grumpy old man, and it was pretty awesome. And I loved pretty much every scene in the film that involved robots. Uh, that was one aspect that I couldn't get enough of. But just like everyone else, I thought it started to fall apart at the end. Um, the villain falls flat. There's this. I don't know. There was some other third issue that I had with the movie, but I can't really think of it right now. Doesn't matter. But the other one that I can think of at this moment is that the movie tries to make this sort of observation about humanity and how we view the apocalypse, which is just fucking dumb. uh, but still, like I said, it was worth a watch. It had some really cool action in it, some pretty cool characters, and the special effects were fairly well done. At the same time, I'm not really that surprised that it bombed at the box office. But again, it was worth seeing once. Um, Up next, I went and saw Spy, which, from the commercials, I actually thought it looked kind of stupid, despite the sort of critical acclaim that it was getting. And of course, I was pretty annoyed by all of the ads that were playing on YouTube that I couldn't skip. It's like, just let me get to my fucking video. But after it came out, the reviews were pretty positive all around, and I was like, you know what? I might check this out. One of the main things that attracted me is, I love action movies, and I heard that it was just as much of an action movie as it was a comedy. I'm playing with this fucking key too much. Um, and that was pretty much what I got. I mean, it was a lot more hilarious than I thought it would be. It was really just absurd and constantly had me laughing, and I loved how the villains in the movie were able to be just as funny as the heroes. Like, the main bad guy in the film is just a complete and utter bitch, but she was funny as hell. And Jason Statham definitely has some comedy chops in the movie. I love the direction that they take his character. I thought he was hilarious. And, you know, it doesn't follow the sort of formula that most spy comedies tend to do, where you're just following some bumbling idiot who kind of stumbles into success by accident, and that just makes it funny. Melissa McCarthy, who is of course the star of the movie, manages to kick some wholesale ass, and I if I had heard someone tell me this before I'd seen the movie, I would have thought it sounded like the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard. But Melissa McCarthy's character in Spy was more badass than Jason Statham's character, and it really does have to be seen to be believed, and I would recommend seeing it. Um, it's pretty early to be saying this, but I think Spy's gonna be pretty close behind Mad Max Fury Road as one of my favorite movies of this year. It was a pleasant surprise for sure. And then finally, the last movie that I've seen, at the theaters this year was Jurassic World. And I thought it was a great monster movie. Of course, the androgynous Rex was a cool kind of main antagonist for the film. Uh, I liked how they sort of upped the horror aspects of the story. There was one scene in particular that sticks out in my mind where this pterodactyl picks up a woman and just drops her in this water, and then it picks her up again and just keeps dropping her in there again and again and again. I thought that was pretty intense. I mean, I might be having a nightmare about this movie soon as well. Um, and I love Chris Pratt's character in the movie too. A lot of people have been skeptical about how believable the character of a guy who trains velociraptors can be, but they played it off pretty well. They did not shy away from the fact that raptors are in fact cold-blooded wild animals. I thought they played that off fairly believably. Um, but let me reiterate, it was a great monster movie. Oh wait, I almost forgot. There was also like this huge showdown at the end of the film, which made the whole experience worth it. It was easily the best part of the movie is the finale. Anyway, you could probably see this criticism coming at this point after what I was just about to say, or just starting to say. It was a great monster movie, but it was a terrible people movie. Chris Pratt was really the only uh, character that I liked in the movie, you know, just as a character. The movie even has like a human villain in it, but he's like a cliched sort of character who wants to use dinosaurs as military weapons, and it's lame. But he only comes in second place as far as my least favorite characters go. Easily, I thought the dumbest character in the film was the big brother, and I could potentially see some people being annoyed by the little brother. I thought he was fine. It was just the big brother, pretty much everything that came out of. Wow, I'm pretty much sounding like him right now. Pretty much everything that came out of his mouth was just stupidity. Um, there's one point where, their aunt calls them on a cell phone and tells them to get out of this area they're in. They're in one of those little rolling spheres that you saw in the trailers, wandering among these dinosaurs. Their aunt tells them to get out of there and come meet her because, the park's being evacuated and everything. Or not the park, but the world. Fuck it. The theme park. And, they come to this area which is supposed to be restricted and everything, but the fence has been broken. And it pretty much screams danger. The little brother, tries to reason with his big brother that they were told to go back, and then he's like, well, don't you want the whole Jurassic World experience? Shh. And then they roll down there, and as you can expect, things go bad. They run into the androgynous Rex, who kills them. No, that's pretty much what I wished would happen. But they get away from it by jumping over this waterfall, and they swim to shore, and then the big brother's dramatic line when they get to shore is, we jumped. Praise logic. And I mentioned like second hated character earlier. In case anyone's wondering about my second favorite character, I would have to say Bryce Dallas Howard's character in the movie, because she was freaking gorgeous to look at. And that's the only positive that I was able to take away from her. Like I said, everyone who wasn't Chris Pratt, I just didn't give a shit about. But still, just like Tomorrowland and Project Almanac and American Sniper, I did have a good time while watching it. I got a few good laughs out of it, and it wasn't terrible. So so far 2015 seems to be the year of the movies worth watching once. Anyway, this video has been running for 20 minutes now. I'm gonna stop. I hope y'all have a good one.